right, I will call to order this meeting of the Wabash Township Board on October 15th at 6:59 p.m. Roll call. Mr. Pittsburgh, present.
President Germany.
David Tate. And Ed Ward and Angel Valentin are also present. For after the pledge of allegiance. Yes.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business, approving the previous board minutes. They look fine to me. Any other comments?
Just a minor note for future ones. If we could change VFD to fire department, because or FD, because not all of our because we're not just FD.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So
that's the only thing I have.
we can amend that in future minutes, but I'm fine with copying these minutes. Me too for now. So I will motion to approve the previous board minutes. In
Second that motion.
favor? Aye. Township update. Any minutes to start?
All right. So I've got a couple of things here. First off, it's fall finally, and the weather is finally treating us nicely, which is nice. So for me on the finances side, I just wanted to give you guys an update on investments year to date. So year to date, we have received about $24,000 on earned interest through the Centier Bank account. Just under 24, 23,909.91. I can give you. And then we finally, actually, thanks to Ian and many calls to Trust Indiana, I finally have access so I can log into the Trust Indiana account, and we've moved our money there, which has a higher yield. So we are keeping most of our money in the Trust Indiana fund. And we are, since it is currently out yielding the money market checking account rate that Centier can offer. I will have, and I have the language that I can pass for you guys later. If you guys are willing to do this in the new business, adding a request for two motions, one to increase the 2024 budget of the home rule fund, which is the mobile integrated health fund, the 9501, trying to increase it by 8,000 just so that we can do a couple of expenses. It's all grant funds that have to be done in one of the 3 years. We finally have stuff set up for the vehicle outfitting, and we're looking to buy an additional computer for Linda Tyson, our employees through that program. And after going through the budget review process for the home rule funds with staff, we would be seeking to increase the budget for the 2024 budget as well for 9504, which is a safety pin grant, to 2,874, and I've got the line items updated there as well. So I can talk about that at that point a little bit further. On township assistance, year to date through September, we have had 182 requests. We have had 73 household recipients, 73 households that have been receiving assistance, 206 individuals total. That would be at about just under $80,000 in assistance. Last year at this same point, we had received 70 less requests, so 112. There have been recipients from 60 households, 157 individuals. And last year, the assistance provided was 46,748 up to that point. Extrapolating, we're currently on pace for about 124 throughout the end of the year, which is a little above. But as I've said before, we unfortunately can't just turn people away because we're required to provide assistance. But we still have money available in the general fund based on current expense rates that we don't think will be an issue for this year at all. I don't have anything particular to report on the fire department. I know Ed will have stuff. For staff, we are seeking, and this is a conversation more for December, not necessarily right now. We have been in conversation with one of our staff members who has been doing a really good job, our township assistance coordinator. And we'd like to switch that to a PERF eligible position. So that was a conversation that we've had in the last month. And so that would require eventually an additional appropriation in 2025, and it would cost about 3,500 for the year. And that same person is my new trustee designee for when I'm out of town or there's an emergency situation or anything. She will be the point of contact, especially for the coroner's office or for any assistance requests in particular. We have a detrimental plants update. We have had to send 2 letters out to 2 homeowners in residential areas to require them to maintain their yards. Or the township will be required to do so, and then charge them, and if they don't pay, put a lien on their home. We know that one of them won't reply back because the house is primarily abandoned, although they have been paying their taxes, although late. So eventually we think we might be able to get that. The second house, we've sent it and they've received it, but we haven't heard back yet, and it hasn't been updated. Like, they haven't done the work as of now, so they have a few more days. And so we'll have to go through the process. The same note, in December, I'll try to put a resolution before you guys to formalize the process that we're going to be using for all of these. We don't need them by law, but it's a good practice to have it. So we'll set up a process for what the charges would be, how we'll administer the costs, et cetera, what our standards will be for that piece. The last note, well, second to last note, we've kept working, reaching to state legislators regarding the desired legislation in the upcoming sessions. We've been having some good conversations with our local delegation. So we're continuing to work on those and have a good time. And on a personal note, I actually was very honored. I got selected for one of the top 10 under 40 awards by Greater Lafayette Commerce. So that's a neat little thing. And it's a primarily really an award that I've received because of the work that my staff is doing, the work that they've been carrying out over the last couple of years. So big thank you to the staff that's making our township get recognized. And I have a vacation coming November 16th to December 1st. I think I mentioned it last time, but just wanted to remind you guys again. Any questions?
So we've seen an increase in assistance request and amount of money spent.
Yeah.
There's 2 parts. One is, what is that increased due because more available, you're more available, or growth? And if it's growth, then what can we expect for the next couple of years with all the growth going on this way?
So I think it's been both. Because we're more available and more open than in the past, more people are aware of the services that we provide, and there's still more people coming in. But we have seen a lot more folks that are just struggling with really high costs of rent. And that's something that we obviously can't fix by ourselves at the township. We're just trying to deal with circumstances surrounding our community at the moment where housing is really, really expensive. That's been the toughest piece. And we're just continuing to work with other agencies too and trying to, will help, but also here are the other places you need to go to for assistance, Salvation Army.
So what's the projection?
Huh?
What's the projection?
I don't know that I have a projection at this point. I think that what we budgeted for next year gets us really close to what I think the need will be next year. But I don't know that I can project that out. I've tried before at other jobs where I do the same kind of work and the numbers just change from year to year. I can tell you that even though here, because we're now becoming more available, we're seeing more assistance being provided through here. Which is, well established in the community, has seen a slight decrease this year from last year, assistance provided. But other agencies are seeing an increase in assistance provided. Like Salvation Army changed some of their processes, and they're running out of money almost every month. Assistance. And I don't know. I don't have a great way of quantifying it, so I don't want to make a projection.
So I don't spend time looking for it. What is the projection for
The budget for next year?
for the township assistance?
So the total, if I remember correctly, is 140 for next year.
140?
I want to say that's the number. Let me do a quick math here for you. So. It is supplemental. Two, 62 plus 77, yeah. 70 and 70, yeah, 140.
And we spent well over 80.
This year so far? Yeah, and so we're projected to spend 125 this year. So next year we'll have enough money to try to.
Are there any concerns that we're not able to meet the rising township assistance?
There are those concerns, which is part of why we're trying to push for legislative changes to be able to.
What kind of concerns?
Well, I mean, the concern is that we, so like although we're not in an immediate risk of anything like in particular, if this trend were to continue for 10, 15 years, we would run out of money, right? Eventually, because if the growth keeps going and we only have the 77,000 that we're able to allocate from levy, we're trying to push as much of the, what do you call it, the local income tax shares going towards this particular purpose. And we're just trying to make ends meet. We're still coming out this year in the positive overall, like for all of those funds combined, which is where we started last year. That's our anticipation. But long term, that's not always going to be the case necessarily if we keep growing and we can't increase that level. So that's part of what we've been working with the state legislators, trying to get to a place where we have a more reasonable levy and we have room to grow into it as our township continues to grow.
And are you seeing an increase in a specific type of request for assistance that you haven't seen before?
Yeah, so usually we have historically primarily seen a housing request.
As in rent?
Sorry?
As in rent?
And rent, yes. And because people are so worried about losing their housing at the moment because they can't get into somewhere else if they were to lose their housing, there's more people coming in with requests for utility assistance, which is a trend that I'm also seeing at my other job as well, where we're seeing significant increases in utility assistance requests. Because people are really, really stressed about losing their home. So they're prioritizing that, and then we're seeing more need for utility assistance. And personally, a little concerned about the expected Duke increase next year, which was, they requested, I think, 21%. I think the updated number is still like 17%. And that would have an impact as well. That's something that we're paying attention to, but we're not the only township dealing with it for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Lord?
It has been just a little bit since we've had a decent sized update from the fire department, so, I'll do my best. Just we'll kind of hit on run numbers real quick. I went back to 2022, on the 15th of October in 22, we were at 953 calls for service. Last year, we were at 991. As of today, we're at 1,173, so we're up 182 over last year. So our run volume is continuing to grow. It's not uncommon for us in a 24-hour period now to have 10 to 12 runs. I mean, it's becoming a more of a common thing.
Right.
So, was that?
Just try to, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
That's,
Sorry. So as that's been happening, we've kind of had a lot go on. So we got, as we've talked before, we took delivery of our new truck. It's been getting work on over at RPM that Friendly Mountain, the company that sold it to us, is paying to get all the work done to it to fix the hydraulic seals and the waterway of it. Basically, we still have not got that truck today. I talked to the company today. The plan is right now to get the truck to us, let us start getting the truck in service and working on it while we're there waiting for some parts to come in. We just won't use the elevated waterway part. just some parts are back ordered that they're waiting for. And instead of us setting it there a lot, we can have it here and start the process of getting it outfitted, getting it striped, getting it lettered, that sort of thing. So, it's just been waiting for parts, so it should be here. It should be to us very, very soon. We had the Beast last weekend, right? Weekend before last weekend. It went really, really well. Our patient contacts this year were down quite a bit from what they normally are. While attendance was not really down, but our patient contacts were, which is a good thing for us, of course. So nothing major really come out of the Beast. It was a really good event for our folks. We have, as of today, we added 8 new volunteer recruits. 4 of which have fire and EMS experience, 4 have none. One of them is a full-time firefighter at Purdue, career firefighter. He's been with them just since May. Which brings our volunteer numbers up to 33, which is as high as it's been in 2 years, I think, 2.5 years. Which, I mean, it's very, very good. Part of that process is us bringing on 8 new folks. We also had 5 folks come off their probationary period between September and October. So, but we're busy, so we'll take all that help we can get. Our career staff, firefighter Munn, who we hired in June, he'll be graduating from the academy on the 29th of October. They're supposed to be sending out a pretty invitation, and I'll get it to you all. You're all invited, of course, for Dave will be, but during that time we'll also be, so firefighter Munn will be sworn in at the end of that process. We'll also be having our new EMS division chief, Dan Huff, will be there. We'll be swearing him in at the same time since we're all going to be there doing it already. So just having to have a separate ceremony thing for it, so he'll be there as well. So if you guys are able to be there, that would be fantastic. We've just got some things that we've been kind of working on personnel wise. For next year, there's some changes that we're kind of making for staffing wise from, we haven't paid out holiday pay. If guys are working holidays, it's been kind of rolled into their paid time off bank. Next year, we'll be working to change that to where we're paying $100 per shift to the firefighter that works the entire shift. Got to work the whole shift to be eligible for that money for the holidays. We've made some changes to our sick time policy, just some things like that that we're hoping as we grow our staff, it's kind of buttoning up things a little bit. Not to say it's been lax, but some of the stuff we just haven't had a big need for some of the policies or the rule. But as we grow and as our staffing grows, it's great as long as you have people that and when you bring people in that you don't know real well, sometimes there has to be, some tighter guardrails put up. So that's been a big part of the process for us lately. We're in the process of reworking our standard operating procedures and guidelines. That's an endeavor in and of itself because it covers so much stuff. So that's in the works. Hopefully that'll be done relatively soon. Maybe. We've also been working with the union to begin the process of starting to figure out what a contract looks like with the township and a merit system. So those are all things that we've talked about before. We're just kind of in the process now of doing some fact finding. Our executive board of the union is doing some digging on the back end to kind of get their pieces together of some guidance and things like that from the state union. And we've talked about it quite a bit. So we're finally just getting to that place where that's the next step kind of in the process for our staff, especially as we're growing staff. So more to come on that. Just some updates building wise. As you may not have seen, we bought a new called the Big Ass Van out in the bay to try to help with the climate control in the bay a little bit better. Typically during the winter, there's a ton of heat that hangs up at the ceiling of the building, and it's costly to keep the furnaces running out there. So we got a fan, we've had it installed. We've also had new outside lighting put up around the building. The lighting around the building was really, it was in really bad shape. Stuff that was, put on the building when the building was built. Wasn't just light bulbs, it was the housings of the lights. They were in bad shape. So, they've all been replaced. All of our lights on our poles, the light poles out in the parking lot have all been replaced as well. We added an extra light up front. Pulling out of here tonight is terrible. It's really hard to see if people are walking down the sidewalks. So we've added an extra light out there to kind of light that area up a little bit better. If you drive by here tonight, you can't miss the building for sure with the new lights on the front. They're all LED. So, it was a big advantage. We also did the same in the bay. We had 24 light heads in the bay, fluorescent lights. They all came out. New LED lights were put up. There's 16 heads out in the bay now, and it's much brighter in the bay now than it was with the 24 fluorescent heads. So all things that cost money to do, but all things that'll save us money in the long run. And again, just thanks with this building being built in 07, it's just part of that process. Conversely, we'll end up talking about some significant maintenance. Hopefully we can get the furnaces through, the two bay furnaces through this winter. We had Blue Fox here chasing a gas leak, but one of the furnaces, and they got into both of the furnaces out in the bay, and they're in bad shape. We think we can get them through the winter, but the inside of the furnaces are starting to come apart. Even though they've been serviced and all that, but just with the age on them, they're just ready to be replaced. So they're not pieces that, with what we would put into them to replace the pieces inside them, it's going to be just as costly as us getting a new furnace out there. So again, they're supposed to be coming to do final services on everything before it gets really cold, and they'll give us a better idea of how soon that work needs done. So we'll keep you updated on that for sure. Got our parking lot sealed. We had it done at the end of last week. Just got painted today. So again, things that we've talked about doing that are slowly kind of working their way through the next process or project that we've got that'll be starting very soon, hopefully next week. Our EMS supply room out in the bay is kind of getting some work done on it. We mentioned it before, but the plan is there's a shower in there, a countertop. We're taking those things out, opening the room up so we can get some shelving units in there. This is really a big push towards our ALS non-transport process. We have to put supplies that's better than what we have in there right now. So again, this is one of those projects that we had kind of had slated down the road, but as we're expediting this process as much as we can, it's going to have to be bumped up. So I think that's really the bulk of the stuff that I have. I could do this all night long, but I'll save you all the fluff. Do you guys have any questions? Yes, sir.
Do you have a wedding ceremony for your equipment?
We have not done that in the past. Yes, it's a good idea to do that. I don't know how I feel about doing it with used equipment, buying used equipment, but I think it's something we need to have a ceremony of some sort when we're bringing the new apparatus in for sure. Maybe by the time the truck gets all strapped and everything, it'll look new, so maybe we'll want to do that. But we will do something, sure. We had also talked about at one point, and I've talked to a couple of you guys about it, about trying to do an open house once we got the bulk of the stuff in here. We've just been busy, just haven't had a chance to schedule it. We'd like to get it done sooner than later. I'd like to do it before the snow flies still, if possible. So we'll keep you updated on that, but I think we're finally getting to a place where the bulk of the big construction is completed. So we should be able to get people in the building, around the building, to be able to see the things that have happened. So
Second part would, if you're looking at so many runs per day, 10, 12, 15 or so, with increased traffic on that, is there any thought to putting some type of emergency stop lights out here that stop the traffic?
we've talked about it. When they originally redid Klondike Road, they had asked if we wanted one. And they were told that we did not want one. The county was told that. So when we started having some kind of issues pulling out of here and it being so dark up front, I talked to the county about lighting the area up a little more. And those lights kind of came up in that conversation. And let's just say it sounded like all of that would be on us if we wanted to do. So, the lights themselves would be pretty costly if we were putting like a traffic light up to stop traffic and things of that nature. So, I think there's a possibility maybe to work through that a little bit more, but it was almost a non-conversation. Just, hey, if you guys want to do that, that'd be great. It'd be cool, but no offer to try to help with any of it at all.
No grants or anything like that?
I'm sure there's grants out there. We've been, yep, probably grants out there.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have an idea of what the furnace replacement would cost, and have we that appropriately in the budget for next year?
We had not appropriated money for that for next year because we didn't know it was something that was going to be needed until they were here chasing a gas leak. So we had been told previously by the other company that had been here doing the work that everything was good when they did their PMs. There was no conversation about, hey, we need to start this planning process of, how bad it is. So that was kind of a surprise to us within the last month or so that conversation came about. So, we'll have to figure it out. I mean, even if it be, we've got the ability to replace one of them. There's two out there. He did say that the one up towards the front of the bay was in worse shape than the other one. So, I mean, I would like to try to keep them close to the same time, but unfortunately doing that also causes this issue where they both have to be replaced at the same time. So if we've got the ability to limp one through another year, I would like to try to do that as much as we can to try to share that cost over a couple years versus trying to front load all that. It'll be costly. I mean, by costly, I have no idea. They're just general home furnaces, like residential style furnaces. They're mounted up on the ceiling. They're not an industrial style furnace.
That's not as bad as. Okay.
The other part of that heating, the other thing that helps with the heating in the bay is it's got in-floor radiant heat. So when Blue Fox was here and they were kind of going through things, it looks as if maybe the boiler for the in-floor heat has not been serviced in a few years. And we thought that it was part of this process that the other company had been taking care of when they were here doing their preventative maintenance. And it looks like maybe they have not been touching it. So
Isn't that part of an inspection report?
it should be.
Yeah, you should not let a boiler just sit.
That's your insurance, it's. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Those things, when they go bad, they go bad.
We'll keep you updated. Any other questions for me?
Thank you.
Zoom, does anybody that is present want to make a public comment? Frank?
Yeah, Frank Cannon, 3522 Lally Sheets Drive. Since I've, just recently moved here 3 years ago, I'm not quite familiar how government, especially townships work. So some of these things, if there's something that I'm saying that is erroneous, please feel free to correct me. I know you will right now, but I will not be offended. I don't get offended by anything. The rainy day fund. I think I read somewhere that you can increase it by 10% every year, basically every budget year. Is that correct?
So the answer is if there's money left over in the overall funds, you can transfer up to 10% of your total budget into the rainy day.
Yeah, I remember reading something along those lines as I educate myself on how townships, been paid. My concern with the rainy day fund is basically that it has become, and it's not just this township, but it seems to be, some of the other townships, basically just an extension of the general budget. And, I don't know what the, specific legislation was in regard to creating a rainy day fund, but I'm sure it was supposed to be originally, and I'll look into it myself, that it was supposed to be for emergencies, like all of a sudden you have no heat, and in the Bay Area. I'm just curious in regard to that, and that's something I'm gonna look into myself.
Yeah, so, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on Hill, but I know that historically that was the case even in this township, and we've made an effort to use it more.
Yeah, so
In the time that we've been here.
in the past, the rainy day fund was being used much prior to my time order as a trustee. So a couple administrations ago.
Yeah, like that. Yes.
There was the money from the township assistance fund was being funneled into the rainy day fund to pay for expenses in the fire department. And so that was how it was operating at that point. And if we've made an effort not to do that, in 2023, we had to use money from the rainy day fund. In 2022, we did not, if my memory serves me right. In 2022, we actually moved a portion of the money that we had remaining into the rainy day fund the way that it is designed to be done. So we've tried to move away from using that as an extension of the general fund, and that has not been the way it's operated. If you were to look at a budget report to right now, would see there hasn't been any expenses from rainy day fund this year. There wasn't any, as if my memory serves me right, in 22, and there wasn't any in 2021 either. So I think that has been a change that we've carried out.
Been pretty.
I can't speak for other municipalities, but that's not how we.
Yeah, not anymore. But you're right, historic.
I can tell you when I started here, all the utilities for the fire department, most of the things that were purchased all came out of rainy day fund. I don't know why. I don't know what that process was, but it was weird. It just seemed weird that it wasn't budgeted through the budgeting process. It was all coming out of rainy day fund.
Well, I'm glad to hear that it's being used for things that are basically issues that just pop up out of nowhere. As I think that's probably the legislative intent, originally with the legislation. But the last thing I had is in regard to, I'm used to coming from an area where revow occurred every 10 years and the rates were adjusted. Am I wrong in saying that basically here it's you have a revow every year, but obviously you've got a revow every year. And I know that is basically the law. And what happens if you have a situation? I know there's a lot of legislation going on. I follow it very closely in regard to basically, redoing the whole real estate tax. There's different proposals from both candidates in regard to that. There's two proposals that two state legislators have in regard to it. But what happens if you have another recession, housing bubble that occurred like in 2007, 2008, where basically nationwide property values fell 15.7%. Am I wrong in assessing that if all of a sudden the assessor comes through 2 years from now and property values have fallen that much, that the amount of income coming into the township would be that much less?
So that is not exactly correct.
Okay.
So the short version of it is, and this is a much more complex thing than I can explain in a minute, but I'll give you the short version. So Indiana is levy driven, not rate driven. So because we are a levy driven state, we only, the township will get that portion of the money. So each year, the levy is allowed to grow by X amount percentage points. And that money is then, you're able to tax for it. There is a second piece that affects stuff, which is circuit breaker. And circuit breaker means that if you are above 1 cent per $100 of assessed value, if you're residential, 2 cents if you're rental unit, 3 cents if you're commercial, then that reduces, that's the cap of how much you're going to pay. Depending on the area, you might be at or under those. We are currently, for unincorporated area, under the 1% cap. For commercials and rentals, they wouldn't see any impact on it regardless of, because we are again under the 1% cap. That is more of a question that affects primarily the city of West Lafayette. So that is not an area that we are particularly concerned as potential. It will potentially have an impact, obviously, but it won't be substantial enough. Yeah, it won't be substantial enough that it makes a dent to this.
Townships are weird. We're a weird state. We're the only state that reimbursement.
Yes. Everybody.
Okay, I did not see anything from the October 22 and 23 minutes. Continuing to table that.
I believe so, although David, indicated earlier in the meeting that there might have already been sent, but I haven't seen those through, so we'll check. We'll definitely get it.
Send you some that I had.
You, oh. It's been up there for a couple of weeks for me, on a personal level, so I have not been attentive to my.
Let me go back and look at the drafts and see what I sent.
Okay,
And I told him, and he'll, if not, I'll just go back and look at the dates that are missing.
I'll circle back in a couple of
Okay.
weeks. We'll knock this out.
I think I sent one to you and you said it was okay, but I can't, that's been
Yes, it's been.
back when Ed was a young man.
Um. Okay, moving on to new business.
I mean, I think it's fine. It's mostly really stuff over there, but I think it's visible enough. You're fine.
And everybody has paper.
Yes.
Okay, so resolution 2024-19 to amend the 24 salary resolution, save pay on helping you give me a 2-second overview of this one. I think it's just very quick.
Yeah, so 2024-19, we, as part of the safety pin grant that you guys adopted last week, we are making the change to allow for the CPR coordinator position, which will get paid less than $600 for the remainder of the year to be able to be there. That's grant funded. That was the only change, as far as my memory serves, that is on this piece. Everything else would have stayed the same. So it actually is with the number for for the amount for that I'm requesting in that motion that I mentioned for the 9504 fund. But they're two separate pieces, obviously, but they're tied together in that sense that it's to create that CPR coordinator position for pay and to be able to do so with the 600 at the end of the year. So.
Okay. Yep, this is fine with me. Any other questions? Motion to vote on resolution 2024-19.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, resolution 2024-20. This is appropriations and tax rates for the 25 budget. We went over this in detail last time.
I wouldn't say, unless the board has a specific item that they have a request for further information, I would say no. I would point you guys, I provided an updated form 1, which is just the budget estimate form. That includes the information for the 9501 and the 9504 funds that wasn't there in the last one. Those are home ruled funds, so they don't really have to be reported to DLGF. But just out of thoroughness, I included all of it on here. And so you should be able to see those budget line items for what they're, what the money is allocated toward. And we're still within the context of the grant, so it's all grant funded for those two funds. And so I've included that on there and you can see it on the resolution itself.
Any other questions from the board? All right, motion to vote on resolution 2024-20.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right. Resolution 2024-21, same thing, but 25 salaries. Is there anything in here that's different other than just continuing the CPR coordinator position?
So the CPR coordinator position, the rates that we discussed in the proposed budget for salaries. We changed as part of the process that it's independent, but we would like to still do the PERC thing that I mentioned. That we wouldn't have to do that immediately. We'd probably be able to do that in December, but we are still also trying to move the township assistance coordinator to a salaried half-time position. So that's the 24,960. It would have previously been an hourly position.
Okay, so that is correct on here. That will not change. Right?
Correct. That is correct. That is correct on here. This one wouldn't need to change. The only point, and I'll have to check with our lawyer later on, we might need to, or with DLGF really, and SBOA, we might need to outline the holiday piece there. in a future update to that, but that's would be a minor revision. Two additional small things. We are adding a specialization for the inspector. That was included in the budget, and I believe that we mentioned it during the last proposal. But that's outlined here in this salary resolution as a specialization. And then we renamed some of the part-time positions to be a specialist, a firefighter, paramedic, or at the point at which once we have an ALS non-transport operation going on, so that we are able to have a person that's part-time covering for that. So we renamed them firefighter, paramedic, firefighter EMT, and firefighter EMR, and the specialist. Those are minor tweaks.
No changes in the money amounts.
No changes in the month. Well, from last year, yes. Sorry, from last year, yes. It would have been from.
Pay increase that we discussed during the budget.
Yes,
Right.
But nothing since we.
no. Not really, no.
Any other questions? Motion vote on resolution 2024-21. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we've got a couple of public hearings on additional appropriations. I will vote a motion, I will bring a motion to open a public hearing on additional appropriations for the general fund and fire and EMS fund. Second. All in favor? Aye. All right. Trustee is going to present some additional appropriations of $55,000.
So I know that we have already discussed this in detail a couple of times. What we are requesting is $40,000 for the settlement agreement that has been approved earlier in the year. And this second part, I haven't discussed as much with you guys, so that part, like, we can talk about a little bit more. Since we've been doing a little bit of work this year that was unappropriated for the building out back, like the work for, you know, with the owner's rep and, surveyor, stuff like that, we would like to appropriate 15,000 for that purpose in the general fund. And then the $10,000 for the fire and EMS fund in this hearing, is for the First Responders Emergency Assistance Program, which is the, essentially mental health being available for our staff for the work that they do and whatnot. So, those are the additional appropriations in this particular public hearing. So in public hearings, just as a reminder, there's an opportunity for public comment on the subject of the public hearing.
Any comments from the public? Before we close this one. All right, motion to close this public hearing.
Second.
Favor? Aye. Motion to begin a second public hearing, an additional appropriation for the cumulative fire fund of $105,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. You can take us through this one, John.
This is for the purchase of the new engine 606, which has already been approved by the board and that we are in possession of, and well, we're in possession of it, but it's currently adopted. It's not in operation, but we're in possession. And so it's as we had discussed, we put a down payment amount, and then we have also scheduled for that first payment of the first of 7 payments of this loan term, which would happen this year in December, to be carried out from the Cume Fire Fund, and then next year onward, the remaining 6 payments will come out of the fire debt. So that's all it is.
Any comments from the board or the public? Motion to adjourn this public hearing.
Second.
Favor? Aye. All right. Resolution 2024-22, approving additional appropriations. It's discussed. Motion to vote on 24-22.
Second.
Favor? Aye. Okay. Resolution 2024-23, authorizing the 2025 application for public safety tax on income tax funds. This is just authorizing us to go ahead and request the local option tax next year and getting that done ahead of the game. And let Onhill move on next year. Onhill, is there anything else you want to say about this?
We have also began, so this will be, the upcoming year will be the first year where we will have a public hearing being required by state legislature. I know that I indicated last, a couple months ago that there was a chance that it was this year. The interpretation of the county attorney was that it wouldn't go into effect until next year. And I didn't feel like fighting with the county attorney about it. So, the next year will require a hearing, and so we will go through that. And so it'll be presented to the three members, technically all members of the local income tax councils. There's three important members, and as we discussed, that actually have authority over it. We have in the past requested 250 and 250 the last 2 years. This year, I'm asking for permission to be able to request up to 600,000. In part because we really need the money and we've asked twice now, and so we need money. Different from previous years, we previously have specifically outlined what the distribution would be. With it moving towards it requiring a public hearing, we would like to have the leeway to determine between the fire chief and myself what would be the best request that increases our likelihood of being funded to receive funding from the county. So we don't have a funding request outlined yet, but we want to be able to have the ability to do so, and we'll be communicating with you guys ahead of that as to what we will request for, if so authorized by you guys.
So your statement is we really need the money.
We have a list of priorities, and I can give you a list of priorities. Last year we did the estimate, and we know that for everything that's coming down the line, we know that we will need stuff for ALS non-transport and any additional work that we do in that direction for patient care. We know that we have radio equipment needs. We have been applying for grants, and we will continue to do so for that paper as well. We know that we have 3 engine replacements upcoming in the next 5 years. That would be engine 601, the ladder truck, or the Quint, which there's a possibility that given our growth, that we'll need to go for a ladder, which will be a little bit more expensive. We know that we have the brush truck that's coming of age as well, that we'll need to be planning for replacement. And we have the tanker engine that we know will be a replacement for as well. All of these apparatuses are in good condition at the moment overall, but we also know that with the population growth, we need to extend their lifespan so that in the future, when we have, within the next decade, we envision needing to have a fully staffed second station, so that we have the apparatuses, and it's better to stick with the replacement schedule than to let these take a beating as they get older and then need to buy 2 new apparatuses for those different pieces in the coming years. So I'd rather buy the ladder sooner, or not sooner, but on schedule, and then continue to be able to service our existing plants so that we don't have to buy 2 ladders in the next 10 years instead of 1. So.
If you know how many serves, the radios alone is like 2.
Yeah, we've been,
The sheet that we asked for was a low estimate.
Yeah.
we've been,
Almost half of what we would be asking for just for the radios, which we've been saying for.
yeah, and as we haven't received funding in the last couple of requests, there has been, we have had radios that we've needed to replace, excuse me. And so we've continued to do the replacement for those radios. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is we've tried to go out and buy either slightly cheaper models or lightly used models to try to decrease the cost and be able to extend what our money can get us as we're getting into those replacements. So it's just that it's the growing pain. We're a growing township with a lot of needs. We're trying to be able to meet the service of the community. We have some ideas of pieces that might allow us to use this money in a way that creates income in the future, but we're not there yet at the point to be able to.
Without that 600,000, where do we stand with that list you went through?
We have a short list. Part of it is the radio equipment, part of it is, again, ALS related. So advanced life support on the medical side. So those are two of the probable, pieces that we'll end up putting money towards.
The apparatus still need replaced. But those things still have to happen. It's just less of, it just hurts less on the township for us to be able to go after this money that they're already collecting as a public safety tax.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
And again, we've got buy-in from at least one of the municipalities, as I've mentioned in the past, so West Lafayette has been supportive. There has also been rumblings of more township trustees becoming aware that it'll require a public hearing and considering applying for it next year. So there's a possibility that the county really is kind of pushed towards doing the right thing, and being able to.
So if I'm just thinking out loud here. With the expenses that you're thinking about with the building maintenance, utility, new people, new equipment, furnaces, radios, which is gotta be a number one priority, really. Are we, if we look ahead, not 2025, let's say 26, 27, 28, budget wise, as far as being able to pay for all this, are we gonna be in good shape?
Yeah, so the answer is more convoluted than
Simple.
than simple,
Yeah,
but
just-
the simple version of it is that, yes, a lot of those upcoming expenses would be paid as they are by most municipalities via the debt service fund.
Yes.
So we know that we would be able to do a lot of those expenses through the traditional debt service process, the same way where you pay off an apparatus, you can have multiple apparatuses on the debt service if need be. We also have about $900,000 in reserves in the cumulative fire fund that can help dampen some of the impact of these upcoming things. I think the largest expense down the road that will be the most challenging one, and it's part of the reason why we pushed back our forecast a couple of years, is the need for, when we get to a place where we're looking to build a second station, that'll really be the bulk of the most challenging pieces ahead. That'll be by far the largest challenge that we'll face. There's a lot of tools out there. I don't want to scare any of y'all into doing that. There's programs through the same program that we use for the lease, the lease/purchase of 606. There's ability to do that over an extended 20-30 year piece, for the purchase of a new building if we needed to do that. So we've got tools. I'm not super worried about it, but I know that we have enough pieces on the board that will need to get taken care of, that we have to be proactive and show the taxpayers that we're going after every funding source available. So I'm not worried about being able to do so, but I don't want us to leave opportunities on the table. So that's why we're going in
Top of it. Make it done.
exactly.
And be very judicious in how we spend our money. Obviously, the radios, because that's really a safety issue.
Do you think that that would be an issue, knowing that you can in fact pay for it? Would that, you think they might bar you from getting the money that you need? They might see it as you don't need it. Why would you really give you something you don't need?
So the reason why yes, we've been very clear, and honestly, like, at least from the folks that have been willing to sit with us have not seen it as an issue that we do have money in reserves, in part because we have drawn up for them a replacement schedule of what we anticipate, or a draft replacement schedule, if you will, of what we anticipate major expenses to be over the coming years. And again, we know that we're gonna have to take on debt, and same as they are interested in not taking as much debt as possible, then they understand that our money is being used in a similar way. And it's also, as a portion of our operating budget, because we've grown in staffing and whatnot, it's also a smaller portion of what we have in reserve than it has been in the past. So I'm not as worried.
I think as part of that process, though, it also shows the municipalities that are actively going after the money on their own first, right? It's not as if we don't want to impact our tax base at all, so we're just gonna keep going to them for money, so we don't have to try to do any of that work on our own. I think Onhill's done a great job in that process of trying to make the changes, make the increases that we can make on our own to show that we're trying to do our part, and you're collecting this money from the people that live in our area anyway. So try to find some way to share that back, you know. There are municipalities that will ask for money that have done nothing on their side to try to soften the blow on their own, right? So, I mean, to me, I think it goes a long way that we've done everything we can do to try to be as judicious with the money that we have and try to be try to do all the work we can on our own without just going to them.
Thank you. Motion to vote on resolution 2024-23 authorizing the application for public safety.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, only announcement I have is that the next meeting will be on December 17th, regular bi-monthly meeting, wrap up the last of the stuff of the year. Yes, on that?
If I could have, if you're amenable to it, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
for the two motions that I had, mentioned earlier.
Yes.
I've got language so that you can. Yes. Oh, yes, and an announcement while you're doing that, 602 is fully paid off a couple months early, and it saved us a couple of $100 by doing so early, so. That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
That's a $700,000 fire truck. Now we can buy the furnace.
How much did we save?
I'll pull up the number, but it was
Roughly.
it was like $500.
Okay,
Down payment.
so I've got a couple of motions here for, these home rule funds that we went over earlier, the 9501 and 9504. To do a little bit of outfitting and buy a computer and pay the CPR coordinator through the end of the year, et cetera. So motion to increase the 2024 budget for home rule fund 9501 by $8,000. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Second motion to increase the 2024 budget for home rule fund 9504 to $2,874. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There you go. Any other announcements before we adjourn?
I don't necessarily have a particular announcement, but I do want to say that if I have a second, I'm very grateful for the work that our staff has been doing over the last year. We have seen a lot of it pick up, and on a personal level, I think that since we've added Dan as a EMS chief, it has also allowed us to do more of the work that we just were spread too thin to carry out. So I think that we're coming to you guys with some good proposals down the road, and I'm excited for the work that we continue to do. It's not easy when you're a small municipality, but it's good to have a good board that is willing to ask the tough questions and willing to buy into a well-developed vision.
Thank you. Thank you. Hang on to it and knowing what you need. Things smart about it. All right, it is 7:58 PM on October 15th. Motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. See you on December.
That's easy for all that stuff.
You'll send that digitally to us?
Yes, I'll send my notes so that you guys have it too.